president. And within the venue of the program, talking about his house and where the prayer is bidded to hold, the presence of security is very, very large here, as a matter of fact.
When you talk about security, ordinarily, I mean, one would expect that with the number of dignitaries around and because of who he was, there would be an appreciable presence of security there. But is it overtly, much, or just what you would expect on a day like this?
Well, of course, you know that the VIPs that are coming would come with their own security men attached to them. So those ones are on ground carrying out, of course, protecting their principals. But the security arrangement from Katsina State government and that of the federal government are on ground. Of course, they are not doing anything above board, just normal maintenance of law and order and ensuring that people are doing what they are expected to do per time. Although earlier this morning, we were about having a little challenge when some men of the security asked journalists to leave the compound, talking about the residence of the former president. But later on, we discovered that that instruction was not even meant for all the journalists. They were actually very particular about AIT leaving the compound. But we took it headlong, trying to find out why they are trying to single out AIT, to leave the compound. But that was addressed with the intervention of other senior security personnel who waded in, and we, of course, stood our ground trying to find out the rationale behind that instruction. But beyond this, the security men are going about their duties normally, and there's no challenge. Imoni?
Yes, usually when this kind of events take place, the Emir of Daura will be very much involved, as it were. Have you been to the palace of the Emir? Is he expected to play any major role in the burial ceremonies?
We have not been to the palace, and the reason is that at the time we came in this morning, they were already trying to do some sort of partial screening to allow journalists in. So if we had taken that initiative to go to the palace to find out what is happening on, we might have missed out of that accreditation, so to say, to get in. So, but the Emir is around the residence of Buhari now, late former president, and of course, other Emir, the Emir of Kano is here. Emirs from different parts of the country are currently inside, but we don't know who exactly is going to lead the funeral prayer. We don't know who is going to do that, but there are a number of them inside, and the feelers we are getting, distant time, they should be here, and the clearer picture of the activities will be made known.
All right, sir. I guess you...
After the burial, Edemona, after the burial today, what next in terms of what will happen after the burial today, given your knowledge of such Muslim burials? After the burial, there is supposed to be a third day of prayers, 7th day, and then maybe 40th day. Are these being strictly followed?
No formal statement has been made as it has to do with that, but I don't expect anything different. That is the culture with the Islamic burial. Usually, immediately after the burial, in the next 3 days, they will have the 3-day fidal prayer, as the case may be. Then you have the 7th-day prayer, and then the 40th-day prayer. That of the 40th day, I don't really know if it is still being practiced in so many parts of the north, but I'm very conversant with the 3rd and 7th-day prayer. I am very sure that that will happen. As to what will happen after now in the town of Daura, of course, the people are mourning. This is their illustrious son. Apart from the fact that the late president was a leader to Nigeria at various times, he is their son, a son of the soil, and that is reflected in their mood, in their demeanor, and everything. So, of course, it's a terrible day for them, and the memories of today will linger. The emotions will, of course, continue to remain in the next few days. Of course, easing off the tension, the pressure, and the emotions will be gradual as the day winds out. And I also believe that the security men detached to this community may not leave immediately. They will have to be around. But one important thing I must say, as against the impression that people have before now, is the fact that driving from driving from Kano into Daura and other parts of the state is believed to be bedeviled with cases of insecurity, insurgency, but that is not the case, as there were security men stationed at strategic positions, kilometers intervals into the state. So I hope that this will continue after now. And before I hand over to you, let me also say that...
Enamona, just before you hand over,
yes.
We were talking a while ago about whether the third-day prayer will hold tomorrow, considering he died on Sunday, or Friday, like some persons have said. And I think I had a statement where they said, oh, it would hold on a Friday and not tomorrow. So which day is it?
Those details are not available to me at the moment. I will keep tabs immediately after this interview to find those details, and maybe in a subsequent conversation that will be relayed to you.
And you were just going to tell us something before that question came up? Were you going to tell us? Yes.
Yes, what I wanted to say earlier on was the fact that while we were inside the compound of the late president, a number of prominent serving and former Nigerian leaders did talk to us from different political parties across political pluralities. And two significant things resonated or dominated what they kept on saying about the late former president. His incorruptible nature, his demeanor to discipline, as well as his, permit me to say, his no-nonsense approach to issues. A number of these respondents also speak to why Nigerians have misunderstood the personality, programs, and policies of the former president. That naturally, because of his reserved nature, owing to the background where he comes from, being a Fulani man, that he has a very reserved nature, even though by all standard as a military man, he's expected to be relatively brutal. But that his reserved nature, which does not give him opportunity to speak to every issue that comes his way, makes people to misunderstand him. But in the nutshell, it is on record that he contributed greatly to the socio-economic and political development of Nigeria as military head of state and as a democratically elected president. In fact, one of the respondents said that his inability to get the presidential ticket 3 times was a period of tutorial for him to remove the shells of military dictatorship and learn the rudiments of democratic leadership before he eventually came on board as president. So those numbers of years he was unable to get the ticket were, tutorial time for him to be properly schooled. And they believe that he died a Democrat rather than a military dictator that people have misunderstood him for.
Did you discern at any point during those interviews that it is just in keeping with the Nigerian African tradition of not saying anything bad about the dead? Or that, these people were only just pandering to the moment and not actually maybe giving their very, very analytical view of the man during his military and during his democratic periods in power?
On the contrary, those questions that appear to be private or that appears to be left to be private actually came from me. I kept on interrogating what the impression of Nigerians were about his programs and policies, and I tried to also find out from them why it appears that the former president is misunderstood. So it's not just leaving it at the conservative ground that you don't talk about the dead. No. We try to probe into some of those issues. Of course, the average Nigerian politicians, you know, they will be diplomatic where they want to, not on the fact that they don't know the truth of what they want to say, but they have the readily available responses to give on issues they want to talk about, either for or against, depending on what the situation is. And the barrier program, of course, is some sort of a unity ground, a sort of a reunion for them across political parties to come together as everybody. They have a consensus about the personality of the late president, no longer criticizing and saying evil things or bad things, as it were, in the political era. So the tongues have changed, and everybody appears to be saying something nice. But of all, it is the wish of everybody that the Lord will grant him eternal rest.
Certainly, Enemona, you know, like Imoni said earlier, it's a Nigerian thing, you don't speak ill of the dead. But when you say misunderstood, I'm sure that some Nigerians will tell you that that is quite debatable, and some of your assumptions are also debatable. But of course, that's not why we are here right now. We will be looking more at what is happening in Daura and how eminent Nigerians and the common man whom he stood for, the Talakawas, all of them are gathering to give him a befitting is he sent off or sent forth now to give him a befitting sent forth and committing him to the good hands of God Almighty. It
does appear, Nemona, that from the pictures we are seeing that entourage from Katsina is beginning to crawl into Daura.
Yes,
and
yes. I think I was almost asking that you excuse me so we could focus the camera towards the place where the crowd is gathered. If you can look at the other side, dignitaries are already arriving from Daura, but I can't clearly tell you for sure that the corps have arrived. But from the signal at the other end, dignitaries are already arriving, and people are already having their ablution. I believe that in a short while, the funeral prayer will start.
This morning, the Minister of Information, the spokesperson to the federal government, Muhammed Idris.
I think he's granting a press interview. Can we quickly turn to that place? Okay. Yes, Enemona. Right. Yes, we can hear you. Thank you so much. We can hear you. We can hear you. Maybe for now, okay, we allow you to...
We'll just take a break and allow him to...
Allow you to relocate so that you can also refocus our attention to exactly what is happening at that arena.
Told that the delay in the arrival of the remains of the late former president, which was earlier scheduled to be